Mine is more of a this or that. What's going to come first?
Okay.
With the amount of just injuries right now, playoff wise, and we're also going to include regular season as well with season-ending injuries, injuries that had players out, load managing, mainly just Kawhi Leonard. I don't know who else Joel Embiid, I guess we can throw in there.
He was injured.
Yeah.
Injured. Do you think for this main reason for the injuries for teams going into the playoffs or even just the regular season in general, is the NBA season going to be shortened first or are the playoffs going to be shortened first? What is going to happen first? What would you do and why?
I'll let you start it off.
I thought the NBA season was shortened. Was it?
No, it's just for COVID.
Oh, that was just for COVID. Okay.
Yeah.
No, if we're doing shortened, we're lessening the amount of games they're playing in a regular season.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Playoffs, for me, it would go from a 7-game series to a 5-game
No.
series.
No, thank you.
Now you think shorten regular season first?
Absolutely.
All right. Why?
I think shorten regular season because playoffs. First of all, playoffs bring you all the money. Like you can't do that. That's where
Right.
everyone's watching. I've been saying this for years. Shorten the regular season from 82 games to probably around 60, high 60s.
People have been recommending like 54, I think,
Yeah.
is the number. Yeah, just the way the scheduling works out.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, look, that works with me because all the injuries is it's adding up, and it's the best players on the best teams, and you can't have that. So yeah.
Right.
What do you think?
Obviously, I'd rather see a shortened regular season than a shortened postseason, but I don't think any of it should happen, in my opinion. Injuries are a part of the game. People are going to get hurt even in a 54-game season. People are probably going to even get hurt in a 10-game season. Like, it's just a part of the game. I'm always like, it opens up opportunities too. Kind of like, what's like a weird real life analogy. You know how like in like certain times, like you need to catch like a lot of fish in like a certain area for population control. I feel like that needs to happen in the NBA too, where like sometimes, a player getting injured will set up an opportunity for someone else,
True.
right?
True.
That's how Tom Brady got on the scene because of an injury. So I think with the NBA, just injuries happen, and I know people just can't seem to accept it or fathom it, whether it's just being overworked or if it's a freak accident. A lot of the season-ending injuries are freak accidents. You'll see a guy like take a hard fall and tear his ACL,
Right.
or you'll see a guy take a step backwards, and obviously non-contact injuries happen.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like it doesn't matter how many games you're playing.
Well, it does, and I can tell you why right now. Coming from a physical therapist background, if you've played more games in the series, not in the series, but in the season, and now you're fatigued, right? The muscles in your body are going to become compromised because of fatigue, and that's going to put more pressure on your ligaments, more pressure on your tendons, resulting in the injuries, the season-ending injuries that we see,
Right.
like torn ACLs, those types of injuries. And that's because those muscles are not taking the load from the landings, the different cuts now because they're fatigued,
Yeah.
and that's going all onto the tendons.
Right.
So
Well, I guess the thing with that is they're still going to go through the same sort of stuff with a shortened season to begin with. It's just more games. And, maybe that's cue to expand roster sizes or expand teams. That way there's a much more spread out player pool that gives players more opportunities. It gives guys chances to rest. Because at the end of the day, the guys in the 90s and 80s were playing 82 games. And they just kept going. And now we're in a much more softer era, essentially, where, guys aren't forcing themselves as much. And, obviously they're going a lot more, what's the word? They're a lot more intense with their training regimen and all
Yeah.
that stuff. And that's also a cause to it as well.
Yeah.
Because they're wearing themselves down trying to get in shape.
Yeah.
And it's, that it doesn't matter how many games you play in a season. Because I do agree with you with the playoff sense where it's like, it doesn't make sense to shorten the playoffs because that's the games that matter the most. And I think it does give you the most money. And I think you need a big sample size of games in both the regular season and the playoffs to determine who's the best team.
Okay.
Because if it was a 50-game season, the Mavericks wouldn't have made the playoffs this year.
Well, here's the thing. If you have a shortened season, that's going to put more emphasis on the games that are being played. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
when there's a longer season, you see, we got time. We'll get better in the second half, right?
But it's specific matchups that really make the playoffs interesting. Because in the NBA, for those that don't know, you play your, excuse me, sorry, I just choked on my own saliva. You play your 4 division rivals 4 times each. You play your conference opponents either 3 times, some you play 4 times depending on scheduling, and you play each team in the other conference twice, right? So, Denver and Minnesota were even the entire season. They split 2-2, and then obviously they went to 7 games. So I think the season total was what? It was 6-5 for Minnesota, 5-6 for Denver. I feel like you need those. You need all 4 of those games because it really gives you the full story, especially if you spread them out throughout the season. They met right at the beginning of the season, and they met again at the end of the season. So you're playing different teams throughout that. It's where the trade deadline happens and all that stuff. And I've never been a fan of a shortened season because you need the games. That's why you play the games. And if there's not as many games,
why do you need the games?
Well, you need a big sample size with anything, right? How can you determine someone's the better team if they only played 40 games?
Look at the NFL. They play 17 games in the season.
Well, that's totally different because the NFL, they're completely putting their bodies on the line like that, and they're really just, gassing themselves out. The NBA, it's a sport you can play. In high school, people are playing on 4 teams in a single season. They're playing like 3 times a day. So, their bodies should be ready for that.
But here's the thing, that's an interesting thing you brought up. In high school, going back into like the 80s, 90s, right?
Yeah.
Guys weren't playing 3-4 games a day on the AAU
Exactly,
teams.
yeah.
So maybe that's a reason why that they have less mileage going into the NBA, giving them better longevity or less of a risk of injury. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
I think it also just comes down to the players. You see the healthy guys in the league are perfectly in shape, and a lot of guys don't take care of themselves the way they should be. Why do you think LeBron's never had a serious injury in his whole career?
Genetics.
Well, genetics are part of it, but Prince is trying to call me. But but it's obviously genetics can be a part of it, but you need your routine to stay healthy. If you're not taking it seriously, or if you're not putting forth your best effort to try and get in shape and stay in shape, then I guess you're just not made for this league long term. Right? I think you really need to be serious. And that's what LeBron said in his podcast. It's about sacrifice. You have to make sacrifices. And even if that means, not spending time with loved ones. Because if you want to be great and you want to be in this league for a long time, you need to be in shape, and you need to be, I think that's more important than your actual court production because you can sustain it. And I think that's really important for the playoffs too, because the teams that are healthy and the teams that are fit will typically always end up on top.
True.
So, and I think a shortened season, it takes away a lot.
Okay.
So I think it kind of allows you to kind of see everything. And I think so too, because obviously the seasons in high school and the seasons in college are a lot shorter. You're obviously in class or you're doing other stuff. In the NBA, it's your full-time job. So if your full-time job revolves around playing 40 games a year, making millions of dollars.
Interesting point. Because now you might have to pay the stars less money or the players less money because they're not playing as many games.
Because you're losing revenue by not having as many games.
Well, would you be though?
You would, 100%.
Because
would you rather have an 82 game season with not as many pivotal games, but you can get some incredible performances, like when Embiid dropped 70 on San Antonio. Obviously, the Sixers, Spurs, it's a total mismatch, but if you get a historic performance like that, it's good for revenue.
Yeah.
Whereas you're getting 40 games, like, it's just not enough.
Yeah.
You'd only get one matchup between the Spurs and the Sixers, and it would only be you need a home and home.
Yeah.
So you need that sample size.
I see what you're saying, but going back to my point about the NFL, right?
Yeah.
They obviously bring in by far the largest amount of revenue in all of American sports. And I think that's because each game has a lot of emphasis. And I think the less amount of games you have in a season, the more viewership you're going to get per game. So I think maybe they can test something out, a season, where they do 50 games, or they try 60 or whatever works, right?
Right.
They test that out, and if that's something that works for them, go with it, because
Right.
I think players are suffering right now because of the season.
It's just hard for me to kind of side with that, because I mean it's kind of all like, I think we can all agree the NHL is 50 times more physical than the NBA. They play the same amount of games. They both play 82 game seasons. Baseball's not a contact sport like the NBA is.
Right.
They play 162 games. The NFL, it's borderline illegal. I think if the NFL was created today, it would not be allowed. That's why they don't play that many games. And they even just expanded their season. They brought it to what, 17 games now?
Yeah, but that's not the
So-
point. The point is it brings in viewers.
It brings in viewers,
That's the
yes.
point.
But I think the scope of the NFL is totally different from the NBA, where
Okay.
these guys are made to play 82 games in a season.